going to the actual agenda. So what have we got? Spec review. So yes, of course, we would love if anyone has any feedback about the spec, we always want to hear about that. We want to make sure that it's readable to newcomers and that communicates all the concepts well. And the second item is PRs, which is definitely something I'd love to talk about. So perhaps I should actually, so let me just share my screen. I can figure out which one it is at this time of the morning. Okay, so we've got this functional model one, which I think Ryan had a look at. So I'm hoping that perhaps Nikolai could incorporate those changes and we could finalize it. One question I do have with this is it's kind of orphaned at the moment, right? So how do you get to it? Like, is there a link to it from another page? Like, is it a link from the view definition page or from the index page? So I don't know if anybody has any ideas about that, or maybe I could just post it as a question.
Yeah, I don't have a great answer to that. Maybe Nikolai had some thoughts on there, but yeah, I actually didn't notice that it was kind of orphaned when I was looking through the content.
Yeah, I had the same question. I think I made a comment in the ticket on that. It didn't seem like it was linked anywhere.
Oh, yes. Oh, okay. So the other one that I worked on yesterday was this one, which is the core non-core thing. So this started out as adding tags to the test definitions and kind of expanded a little bit over the course of a couple of weeks discussions. And thank you, Arjun, you wrote up an excellent summary, which I used for this. And I think I actioned most of this. So what I did was I changed the reserved tags to align to the profiles so that they could link to them. So, and again, naming's hard. I don't know if anyone has any ideas on this, but I went with shareable tabular, and I can even perhaps show what this looks like, I think. And I added those tags. I tagged the tests. I added documentation about what it all means. I moved the FHIR path stuff into the shareable profile, and I changed the documentation on the view definition page to reflect that and to say you really should support this shareable profile thing. And I also updated the test report to show like it all grouped up into all the different, which I'll show you in a second. But yeah, so I'm not sure if that aligns with what other people thought needed to be done. Does that look good? Is anybody in the position to sort of have a look at that? Yeah,
I can take a look when I get back.
So now it basically sort of has these groupings. So the way I didn't try to pick core apart from shareable because I'm not sure if that's possible. So all of this stuff is basically under shareable. There's nothing currently under tabular, but if there was, it would appear here. And this boundary and joiner under experimental. And if you have any other tags, they'll sort of just get added on underneath here. So, and I can even probably just this, I would say. So now it kind of looks like this. You see that? It basically says you must support the required additional functions, as in resource key, reference key. In addition to this, you should implement the FHIR path subset defined in the shareable view definition profile. And then if you go over here, oh, that went to the, oh no, that's right. Then in here, it will basically have these bits, and I changed this to be two different lists, and one of them is experimental. These are intended for eventual inclusion in the required subset. However, they're not part of the normative release and may still be subject to change, etc. So yeah, that's what I did there.
Sorry, then do we have the list of these FHIR path functions in the main view definition as well?
No, we don't. Because we had a discussion about, you know, what's the meaning of the FHIR path subset anyway? Like, and it actually is only really relevant to being able to share view definitions across different implementations. So we said, well, why isn't this in the shareable? We can use the profile paradigm to layer that functionality on, and that is a more flexible approach for the future when we want to sort of add or change functionality in the spec. Am I explaining this right, Ryan? You might need to step in here maybe.
I apologize. I got a separate message right there. What was the question?
Bashir was just asking about the rationale for this not being in the view definition part of the spec.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I guess I understand. So I guess the idea is that you can have any FHIR path in a view definition in general, but if you want it to be shareable, then this is the subset. Is that correct? So that's basically the thinking, I guess.
Yeah, that's essentially and then I think that the kind of the model there was somewhat in line with just FHIR in general. Like if you look at the base FHIR observation or the best FHIR condition resource, they're very generic, very flexible, and not a lot of definition. But in practice, to use them, you want a profile that constrains those observations to a reasonable set of codes and values and that sort of thing to make them useful and portable between the system. That way, the base observation spec is very stable. It can be reused, and then it can be tailored and customized per profile. So kind of taking here, because we've heard some use cases of folks wanting to use almost any FHIR path in these systems, we'll keep the base spec very open to that, but then we'll have these shareable definitions to make it shared between systems.
All right, cool. Makes sense.
Yeah, it just means that there's no specific requirements in the base part of the specification. But you can imagine we want to be able to cater for the broadest possible sort of spectrum of different implementations, I guess. And we want to have those requirements organized into profiles so that you can mix and match and declare what you're saying about your implementation, I guess. So yeah, so that's this pull request. So I'm hoping someone can have a look at that so we can merge that. And going back to what else we've got open, I think this one might be to do with the example on the front page where we can combine it with SQL. Yeah, so that's great. So I think this one might have also been reviewed by Ryan. So I think, yeah, maybe we can go ahead and merge that after this. So that's probably ready to go. And this one, I think we're going to close this one. I was looking at the spec when I was making some of these other changes, and I was thinking, why have we sort of replicated all these metadata fields into our profile when they actually come from other sort of ancestor resources generally in the spec? Turns out there's some sort of nuance around that with being like an actual FHIR recess versus a logical model. And so it sounds like perhaps we should just leave this for now, but perhaps when we come back and say, want to promote this idea of this becoming an actual FHIR resource, then this should turn into inheritance like it is for other canonical sort of resources in the FHIR spec. So I think this is more like a close for now, but revisit when we look at taking this logical model and perhaps progressing it. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and just, I've already said that in the previous comment anyway. And this one, I think we've said this is not really part of milestone 1 anyway. So these 3, I think we're saying are part of milestone 1 or version 2 or whatever you want to call it. So if we can finalize these, I'm thinking we're pretty much there, right? We do have our milestone here. And yes, that's all that's in there, mercifully.
I was also supposed to add those examples. I don't know whether that's part of the milestone or not.
Okay,
I actually started doing that. I realized that it's actually more complex than what I thought because it seems to me that the examples, I mean, I have never actually, put the site locally, but it seems that, I need to add them to this example, like, FSH file, if I understand correctly. And I just wanted to make sure that, that's actually what needs to be done. And also then I have about like 10, maybe 11 like new definition resources for 10 different resources, like for more common ones, like, patient, observation, encounter, condition. And so do we want all of those, like all 10 to be added to this example FSH file, or do we want just like a subset of those?
So first of all, I'm not sure if this needs to be strictly milestone 1 or not. I think it's a non-breaking change that really just enhances documentation. And so I don't know whether we need to couple it or not. Second of all, I think just use your judgment and add it into this file and create a pull request. And then I think we'll just have a look and make sure that they all make sense and adding value, and we'll go from there. Yeah, you just have to sort of translate it into FHIR shorthand, I guess. So depending on how complicated they are, you might have to do a little bit of work on that, or you could just sort of like feed these and the current ones into ChatGPT and get it to do it for you.
Yeah, there is validation.
Yeah, go right.
Yeah, so when you build the site from the FHIR shorthand, it'll go and it'll do. It actually does a reasonably good job of validating things. So if you have like, a string where there should be a code value or something that doesn't exist, I mean, it does a fair number of checks there. So yeah, I think I think the validation is actually pretty good.
I see. So the validation actually, is it sensitive to like the view definition, or is it just generic validation? I mean, does it validate that, like ID doesn't exist in view definition and then you have it, something like that, or no?
Yeah, no, it'll check the view definition logical model and validate that. So I'm sure there's some things that you could go through, but I think it does as a better job than you might expect.
Okay, cool.
And this
it
ends up looking like.
Right. The JSON ones I have run against our own implementation. The only thing was that, when I convert them to FHIR shorthand, then if there is some sort of validation, then that would be great. And I don't know, I can also add examples because I see each of them have also like a sample table at the bottom.
Yeah.
I should probably provide those as well.
Yeah, so this is probably the nicest one. So yeah, you can add notes. So if you look at the blood pressure one, wherever it is, and then there's also this, you can add a page called binary, whatever the name of the example is, notes, and it will sort of tack on these notes to the end, so you can add explanation about the example. Yeah.
And all those are based on like naming conventions. So just make sure that you kind of follow that pattern that you see in others, and it shouldn't pick it up.
Yeah, but you can basically just run this script and it will build the whole spec to a HTML file, and you can check it out. And
Yeah. That's much I figured by just reading the instructions. Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'll send that PR. So it's not, I guess the milestone is not gated on those examples. So I'll just send it whenever it's ready.
Yeah, and I think just using your judgment, picking some examples that are sort of representative, illustrative, help folks kind of understand how these things work. Yeah. So, definitely some more examples would be welcome here, building on top of this. So that'd be great.
Okay, so I think that might be that item. The third one was about the examples, so we've covered that off. The fourth agenda item is OMOP next steps. And I know that there was a bit of a thread about that, but Carl, did you want to talk to this one?
Sorry, I'm cramming a meal in here. I posted in the group chat some of the updates, and I'm going to have to jump off in just a couple minutes. But regarding reaching out to Vulcan, I've made contact with Devera. She and I are going to meet tomorrow. If anyone wants to join that call, initially when I talked to her, it was just going to be she and I, but I don't think there's any reason that it has to be. So if anyone else is interested, it's going to be in the afternoon tomorrow. I'll post the details in Zulip chat, and just make sure she's okay with having others. I don't think there will be a problem. I think the goal is to coordinate how we can work with Vulcan and make sure that we're sailing in the same direction, find opportunities to work together. And she had some insights into the process, maybe some suggestions for how we approach the OMOP translation process. So hopefully that'll help us do that better and correctly. Craig McClendon had some other really good feedback from discussions he had in the analytics channel back in like January, February. I read through that and it was like, I wish I had seen this 3 months ago. But he's also interested in helping out. So I'm going to try and loop him in as well. So we get some good opportunities for working with people outside this group to inform how the OMOP process works. The other question I posted in the group chat was, where is the output from this subgroup going to go?